let's riggedy roll. I don't know. Any those that are here, any questions, comments, issues? There is some. Oh, I'm going to unmute this here. There is some people kind of not turning things in, while others are, causing me to be like, oh gosh, I got to make sure I get that out because they're going to be wanting that done, or they're going to be wanting that to do that next one. So it's kind of both things already happening, and I just want to make sure, whether it's watching at home or here, let's get caught up as quick as we can. I do understand the technology hurdle is quite high to get going if we're not familiar with ArcGIS Pro, but we need to get going there. As far as the course, I believe the Project 1 is now available to you, and I think that should have happened already. This is the undergrad version that you're seeing. The graduate version looks just like this, except they have to do 2 of the options instead of 4. Or instead of 1 of the options. So instead of doing only 1, undergrad 1, graduate 2. All right, and so there are 4 different options. I will, slightly go through them since this is kind of that time I would normally in a normal classroom. Option 1, the little town that maps. For this option, students can choose any small town. Your task is to create a map for tourists visiting a small town, highlighting certain sites. So this is where you think about principles of symbology. This is where you think about what is important to include for tourists. For you, it might be important to include certain things, but you know your town left and right. You know the alternate names to your town or to a small town, whereas a tourist just knows what they see on a sign or what they see is saying point here to go there. And so this is something where, I like to say, maybe we're one of the few in this building who aren't producing assignments that are easily done by AI. I mean, at the moment, these are things that AI can't do for you. So while every other assignment probably AI could do for you, in this case, the project option 1, I don't know, maybe it can be done, maybe it can't, but that's something I, in the back of my mind had, or the back of my head had in mind when creating this sucker. So this is option 1. Once again, if you don't like this one, all right, do another one. And the other one is choose your own adventure. So option 2 is called choose your own adventure. And so that's one in which you've done in the RA1 this semester. We've done something, and you're like, okay, well, I like to do that, but I got my own data or something I'm interested in. I've had students beforehand who were in somehow I don't know how to do this, so don't ask me, but can create in ArcGIS kind of fantasy lands and kind of a fantasy map. Okay, cool, go for it. If that's something that you would be of interest to you, keep in mind, it's choose your own adventure. And so this is kind of more teed up for those of you who maybe are already doing research projects or are already doing something for a class, but also for those of you who maybe have something that you want to do and think about doing. So that one, talk to me, let's talk. And for those of you who are graduate students, this is one in which if it's really souped up, if it's really got a lot of punch, if it's really got a lot of I don't know, what other adjective, pizzazz, if it's got all of that, then we can count that as actually 2. So essentially, for graduate students, if option 2 is one that's so robust, I'll go ahead and I'll count that as 2 options instead of just the 1. So you wouldn't have to do the other 3. All right, going back to anywhere but Indiana. I hear you. No, I'm tired of it, especially after today. Once again, what are we going to be doing? All right, so here, for this option, you'll create a map that is ready to be printed for the giant map of the USA project. So here kind of takes a lot of what we're doing today especially, and takes it and along with stuff we've done earlier, and just makes a giant map of the United States, make it unique, make it somewhat, something that's maybe stands out, that's different if you can. Be creative, of course. But here we got to think about our audience. Isn't a touch screen. It isn't even a lovely 8.5 by 11. It's a 10. Turn it off. Yeah. It's as we say in Indiana, it's a 10-foot by 10-foot map. So it's a big sucker. So you got to think about your audience as something in which it'll be laid out on a floor, and where would we like to use something like that? In a school, K through 12 school, especially K through 6. It'd be great to get kids on a big, huge floor map of the United States. So that's project 1, option 3, and hopefully maybe we can turn that into something that actually where the rubber meets the vinyl. That's something maybe we can do and actually get that printed and actually used, and then you can add to your resume, whatever. We could do a service activity, something we could really go one step farther when we do project 2. LaPorte County map, that's some random county up in northern Indiana where they're probably buried in snow. So this county here, we're recreating this map. This map is awful. Well, this map needs updated, and this map we can use our new techniques that we're learning in cartography to make this better. So I just have certain things I asked you to do, and all of these things can be found via that Indiana map. So there's that one exercise way back when in which I kind of showed you Indiana map, kind of how to use it, how to download it, maybe also how to access it via the portal. So keep that in mind if you're doing this one, this particular option here. So that's project 1. It's important to note that we will be talking about these, discussing these in person on March 3rd. Oh gosh, I got to get my date right. March 13th. So at March 13th, you can turn this in online, whatever, but at March 13th, we will be in person. So that will be a part of your project, is you in person here and us talking about it. It's not like a deal where you need to, put a tie on. No. We're just sitting here to talk about it. It's more, we're all going to learn from each other. And that's where we then pat each other on the back, and the people upstairs get really happy. All right, so any questions, comments? Let's keep on rolling. Let's do some clicking. All right, let's go back to our schedule, see where we're at, if I don't mind. So project 1 is available, and also something that's been posted. I got people already sending it to me. Discussion 2, and discussion 2 asks you to go back through any map you've created so far. It'd be either in this course or elsewhere, and if you haven't, just go find a map. Go find one somewhere else if you don't even want to look at your own. But you've all used color. I've kind of, for a reason, not critiqued and not touched on any of the early exercises, so you could then critique yourself here in discussion 2 as an opportunity. Make sure that's due. Is it already March 2nd this Sunday? That can't be right.
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, no, that's not right. But is March 2nd a Sunday?
Yeah, it's two Sundays.
Okay, yeah. So it's okay, so it's not due this Sunday. It's due 2 Sundays from now. All right, so that makes me feel better, and hopefully you as well. All right, let's go back to our current topic. Our current topic is map elements and typography. And so we are getting redundancy, but I do want to emphasize those videos contain a lot of important information for the projects. So the projects, you'll note there weren't live instructions, they're not Clickology links. So the projects are really about you applying stuff that's already been discussed or done. Done in the exercises or discussed in the videos. So the online lecture 5, probably more than the other ones, has a lot of important stuff for project 1, but also today's stuff, no doubt, but for project 1, since that is kind of on our radar, but also of a little bit more magnitude. So I definitely want to emphasize this. Whereas the next one, the coordinate system and map projections, that stuff's important, no doubt about it. But as far as cartography, it's just a couple clicks and we've taken care of it. As you'll see, there's a lot of touching and feeling and doing a lot of work with map elements and typography. In particular, the last 2 videos are of relevance to today's exercise, even more so the very last video. So I just want to make sure I mention that now, in case I do forget, that the last video from Online Lecture 5 has a lot of stuff that might not be mentioned today in this demonstration, but are also important to keep in mind on your exercise. All right, well, let's just go ahead and start going then. All right, so, we're not going to hear me talk. We're going to go to the exercise 5. All right, so I've mentioned in the one I was not at last time, if you haven't had a chance to see that exercise 4 demonstration, I did introduce labels and start talking about labels, so this might be redundant, but I try not to talk about the same things today that I covered already. But labeling, it's very important. This class used to be called Cartography and Graphics. And the graphics part really emphasized text, but there's no doubt when you look at a map, not only are the lines important, but what are the words? They're also important. What are we seeing? Because most people don't know what they're looking at. Most people aren't the 1992 West Grove Elementary 6th grade Geography B champions. So most people don't know all the various rivers and counties and all of that. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. 3 different layers we got. We got interstates, and we've got the rivers, and we've got counties. So we've got to add those to the map. So when we do that, we also have to think about the order. And so when we think about which one do we want to be on top? Do we want the interstates to be on top? Do we want the rivers to be on top? And just this kind of as we go through, a lot of what I'm doing today is I'm the bridge between the rules of cartography and the button clicking as far as what ArcGIS Pro, how to do it in here. And so a lot of the stuff that I talk about is kind of more not so much what you might like. It's more kind of what the rules are. For example, blue. We think about that as far as water features. Water features, we italicize them. So water features. So these are things that it's not me. It's not my rules. It's just kind of the general rules of cartography. All right, so let's go ahead and start adding these suckers to the map. So I have not had a chance to do a lot of practicing on this, so this could be wild. A lot of other things in other courses, but yeah, you guys all have the same thing going on. So let's see how long this is going to take. Hopefully not as long as it does at home usually. All right, so went ahead and I opened up the map, and I already should have my extracted exercise 5. So those are files downloaded straight from the Canvas site there. So I'll go ahead and I'll access them. And I'm going to probably take a moment here. So this is a common thing for you when doing ArcGIS Pro. You might not see it there. Click on the triangle. And so if you still might not see it there, come up to the folders, right click, and hit refresh, and it might pop up. So that often happens where I'll get a email, frantic email, and it's as simple as, oh, did you refresh? Oh, they're there now. And so yeah, that's GIS. So eventually it'll be AI'd, but for now it's what we got. So I'm adding each of these to the map, and so like I said, thinking logically. So we put the rules of cartography. We put counties, or would say administrative boundaries. We typically put them above rivers, because we often think of the rivers following along the boundaries. So for example, the state line of Indiana, right here, is the Wabash. So the Wabash River here, we would actually want this to be the state line, or the county lines, to be above the blue line that is the river, where everywhere else it'll be blue. Now that is a kind of a personal preference thing, but it is kind of, once again, the rules of cartography. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the other stuff. We don't need that other stuff that can slow us down. So I've added each of them to the map. Something I don't think did a good job of emphasizing or just talking about is the label ribbon in the exercise 4 demonstration. All right, is there a particular order? I got to follow the rules here. There's certain rules, so I'm going to get, let's go you over there, and, oh, all right. Okay, so if I see each of these, once again, if I think about this logically, I'd want to move the counties above the rivers. Now, obviously, I can't see the rivers anymore, so you maybe want to make them hollow. So if there's a situation where you'd want, wait a minute though, how can I have the rivers shown if they're underneath the counties? This is where all you have to do is just do, just have one, oh, come on, there you go, have it one underneath the other, copy it, paste it, and then make that one hollow, and essentially you now have that hollow one. You can still see the rivers, and so that state line situation would have been solved in that. So I solved that situation there on our southern and western boundary. So I'm not going to do all the clickology as far as making that hollow. We know how to do that based on our other exercises. Just go ahead and do it right there. So there you go. So the counties are shown, but also are the rivers. And I have a situation here along the Wabash where, let's go ahead and make this easier. Blue. Okay, now you can understand what I'm talking about. Now see where beforehand the river is above the state line. Now, that's once again personal preference, but the cartographic rules are administrative boundaries or arbitrary boundaries above physical features. Okay, so that's some playing around with the symbology. We want to make those blue, obviously. This green color, just knowing what I know, that's colorblind, but that's also pretty bright. I do kind of want to allow you freedom here to do whatever you want. I don't want to lead you anyway too much, but think of it logically. Think of things, don't make it so just boom. Subtle colors. I don't know. Go to Sherwin. We'll go to Lowe's and look at the subtle colors. Or I don't know, look tans, grays. You don't want to use blacks and reds and browns. If this was like a map of Ireland, yeah, go for it. Or maybe if we're doing Irish Indiana, go for it. This would be great. But for the purposes of just a reference map, this is probably not what we want to use. All right, so that's kind of some of the. Also got the interstates. The interstates. Where are they? Why are they? I gotta bring them up. So interstates. A couple things to make sure. I saw in the beforehand. I made comments, or I haven't yet to make comments, but there were some of you who still were having that situation where the line wasn't a completely solid line. You kind of were using the transparent option. So what that was creating, every single segment had an outline, and so it was kind of creating this rigidness. So making one solid line was something that kind of to correct from the previous one. But that's also something to keep in mind. I don't know as far as this layer if it's going to be like that. Hopefully it's not. But if it is, let's go ahead and I'll just do that since I saw that with about half of them. So what I'm saying is this line here, changing its appearance to the highway. Most people did that. Yeah, cool. And if you look, you can see the segments. You can see each of those. Well, that's what it is choosing that one by default. Sometimes is good, as you'll see here later. But in this case, it shows it. So I would choose something that was not transparent. Something like, oh gosh, they make this so difficult. Just give me something. Oh, this stuff. So this is they put a lot of work in that. Just give me there we go. So right there, see how that line, making it solid. Now, I don't see all those, it's not as segmenty. Still could be updated, still could be better. You can tell this is definitely an old map because look at where I-69 stops. Stops down here, so it's a lot of improvements. It's not shown on this yet. All right, so that's something from the previous exercise that I haven't had a chance to critique on. I'm kind of waiting for some to come in, but also for you to critique yourself some. All right, so now let's go to the moral to this story here, the labeling. So we're here for the labels. So this is the map part. That's great. Let's now make some labels. All right, did I have order? I've got them in. So we can remove, so we got to do a lot of removing of stuff, so I'm just trying to figure out which ones we want to go. Let's go ahead and start with counties. So counties, label, and they're all labeled for me, great. So if I go ahead and I go to labeling properties, and this lecture is one in which I'm recording what's on this screen, since it probably will be one in which the clicking is quite important. Here's where we then have, once again, our box where we can do all kinds of things. We could make it so that the names look certain ways, that we only include ones that are certain ones. So this is where we can do all those things with Arcade, SQL, Python, and what have you. And what's nice is you'll see here an example of Python or Arcade Arcade expression, in which I got it from AI, ChatGPT, or one of them, Grok, one of them. I essentially just said, okay, help me out with this, and it plugged it in right in there. So, this used to be stuff that you used to have to think and figure out how to do. Now just ask someone to do, or ask this robot to do for us. Anyhow. So other things we can do is change the font type, and that's something that we want to do. We want to change the font type for counties. So the things that are, when I talk about administrative units, in this case counties are the biggest ones on the map. If we also had townships on the maps or something smaller, we wouldn't be doing this. But this is once again the rules of cartography. the rule here is the largest administrative unit, we do it in all caps. All caps. So you can still have the first letter of the place name or the county name be bigger than the other ones. That's still fine. But the unwritten rule is all caps. Now with place names like cities, counties, states, territories. Territories a little bit more, but for the most part, these administrative units, we do not italicize. We do not italicize. So those are not italicized. Italicized is pretty much strictly for water features and other physical features. So typically think about when we're showing the physical environments when italicized, according to the rules of cartography, are more than not used. So with that in mind, let's go figure out how to do this. So hopefully it won't take too much time to find. All right, symbol. Yeah, this is all jumbled up here. So this is where I would want to then change the font to something different, perhaps. I don't usually like as you learned here in online lecture 5 about serifs. I'm not really a big fan of serifs on maps, but typically for the biggest thing on the map, the administrative unit, the one that's on all caps, that is one instance in where serifs are used. Now we typically like to keep it consistent. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a serif, S-E-R-I-F, it's in online lecture 4. It's kind of the extra thing added to, for example, Times New Roman font, added to the end, the tips. And so when we're printing out maps, we're concerned about how much ink to use. That's when it's a little bit more of an issue. But now it's more kind of how does it look? How does it feel? Anyhow, all right. So we can change font size and all of that there in the appearance. Halo, shadow, call out, and those are all discussed in exercise 4 demonstration. So I'm not going to go over them. But I do encourage them as options to consider in your construction here in exercise 5. So although I'm not going to be doing the button clicking here, I did it in exercise 4. And that's halo, shadow, and call out, along with a few of these as well. So those are other things you can do to make the text, the label stand out even more. Of course, with rotation, there's different things you can do, position, all of that. All right, formatting. In the online lecture 5, I do discuss kerning, and that sounds like a weird word, kerning, K-E-R-N-I-N-G. And so that's where I would then mess around with that. Here's in formatting. Paragraph, we're not really messing around with that in this case, and these are things that you can play around with on your own. All right, now let's look at position. This is where we get a little bit more to new stuff I haven't covered before, but also stuff relevant to today. All right, so position, you'll see these 3 different boxes, and they kind of do take you to different things. All right, first off, placement. Placement, just kind of, we discussed this a few different times already, but this is, this thing of it logically. And what's nice is if I go up to, make this bigger, labeling, come on, let's make it bigger, more, you'll see this use Maplex label engine. Make sure that's checked on. Now it should be already checked on. But what that is that's essentially ArcGIS and their algorithms, their robots, coming up behind the scenes with deciding where's the best way to put these labels. And so it's essentially intuitive, and it's the best thing to do, especially when you have lots of labels. Now, if you are wanting to do more customization, if you want to kind of do more choose your own adventure, if if you got smaller, less amount of words and text, then check it off. It might not be of interest to you. However, if that's not checked on, you might not be getting the same content, the same buttons to click that I am. All right, so make sure that that's clicked on there. So placement, different things you can do. I'll come back to that. Avoid overlapping label polygons. So a lot of this. What is nice about ArcGIS, I don't know the term for it, but what's nice for it is you can try something. It's like a dressing room, and so what it is you can kind of try it out, and if you don't like it, you can say, okay, you can undo it. Now this is something that, of course, that sounds just like any other computer application. Well, this is not the case. It wasn't like this 2, 3, 4 years ago. So this used to be very complex and hard to do, and it kind of was one of those things where it took and froze and took down the whole system. So what's nice about this is you can kind of look at things and say, no, I don't like that, and get rid of it. So I encourage you to guess and check. As you're doing this, all of your maps are going to be looking different, and as you go through, play around with these buttons. I'm not going to have the bandwidth to talk about every single nuance of every single one, but this is where you can, if you want, go after it and get creative. All right, so this is where you can then determine, okay, how do I want the text to be in the polygon? Do I want it to be curved? So you can see how that looks. So this is what I'm talking about, how you can guess and check. That's what I meant. I should have just done it. Say, oh, I don't like that at all. So, okay, I like that better. A lot of other instances, you do have to hit the apply button. Okay, so I'm going to possibly come back to these. Orientation, do different things. Leader line, that's the line. So let's say you have a situation where Switzerland, too big of a word, too small of a county. So you can have the word Switzerland out here, and then you can choose to have a line going to, in this case, the geometric center is what that option is. So if I do want to do that, that's what that's referring to. All right, now let's look at the. I don't play chess. The horsey. What is that? The knight? Yeah, that's right. The horsey. So the stack. That's something that you'll come across when we're working with the rivers. So you'll come across a place like Big Sandy Mountain Creek. So Big Sandy Mountain Creek will be like 4 different things, and so it's stacked 4. In the case of rivers, now it's not always the case, but we do like them to be elongated and to follow the general path of the water. As I mentioned in online lecture 5, though, you don't want to ever have the text upside down. So if we have the river, we would prefer, for this river here, we'd want the name to be on this side, and we wouldn't want it, of course, facing this way, and we wouldn't want it upside down. And would say the Big Sandy Creek was this blue river here. We'd want Big Sandy Mountain River Creek. We'd want that all as one. We wouldn't want as stacked. So that's where that is discussed, the whole idea of stack. Overrun, that's not going to be a problem with this assignment. Reduce font size, I have played around with that. You can do that. What it does is it does a bad job with the counties especially. It really shrinks them. It's like Switzerland, and you can't even see it. Whereas go for it if you want, but like I said, try it on and see if it fits. If it doesn't, then get something else on. An abbreviate, that's something you could think about, not so much for this assignment, but it's something to consider. And then the other things we'll get maybe down the road, but it's kind of, okay, which of these particular things is the most important, and putting them in order. Lastly, over here, remove duplicate labels. We often like to do that. That's something we typically do, so that's where that is discussed. But not always do you want to do that. And something else that's new as well is this whole unplaced labels. So there used to be a deal where unplaced labels were just just never dealt with. Here you can actually choose don't remove them. What do I mean by an unplaced label? Let's say it does this, the algorithm, and Switzerland County, it can't fit it in there. Then it would be called an unplaced label. And so in this case, this says, no, you're going to figure it out. You're not going to remove it. So this is handled there. Okay, counties. Where's the text? If I go back to the text, appearance, you'll see text case, uppercase, apply, and now that's done. All right, so long-winded just to get to all caps counties, but I think on that route we took care and we checked off a lot of boxes on my to-do list. All right, so that is for the most part taking care of the county. Like I said, we can do different things. Hopefully I remember in the post-production, like Vermilion County, this is a simple situation where I can take this county name, instead of having overprinting is where the text here, the label is going over the county line, it's going over this part of the county line as well, over the river. That's overprinting. I can just take that Vermilion and move it 90 degrees, and it fits perfectly in that elongated county there. So that's the stuff that in your cartography and your post-production to consider. But also, there are options there. I don't want to go ahead and click it for you to click where it will do that for you. Going down here, another often challenging situation is Vanderburg. The cartographer worst nightmare, a long label and a small geography. So Vanderburg, I suggest 45-degree angling it. Because of what's here, that road is there. It's not really going through the middle of the county. So if I make Vanderburg like that, that makes it fit there much more logically, and I can see it clearly, and I don't have overprinting. That H is an example of overprinting, something discussed in Online Lecture 5. Dubois, or as they say down there, Dubois, that's an example of overprinting. We just want to move that just a little bit over so it's not on top of the water. Love that it's centered. I'm very happy about the centering of it, but I don't like the overprinting, so that's where you just slightly move it using techniques I'll show here in a minute. Okay, wow, this is a long one. Where are we going to go next? What's next? Let's look at our next problem, or I shouldn't call it a problem. I'm going to turn the counties off. Ooh, okay, I did that one, so that's fine. All right, let's label. Actually, let me go back. So a lot of you might be looking for, where on here is the one-click button to label. So this is something I didn't know until yesterday. I've always been right-clicking and finding label. I didn't know there was one click, one button to click, and it'll do the labels for you. Right here. I never knew that. So right there, this label, I saw this thing, it said label. Just click that, and it does the label for you. So you don't have to right-click label like I've always been telling you guys. And so there's this here where you can then change the label just to kind of introduce this labeling ribbon. See labeling, and they call this the ribbon. And so I can change the name. And you can see the name as is awful. The FID obviously is of nothing to us. This is here where, once again, I can do different things. I can ask it to only show certain ones. We played around with this one in exercise 4. So I already introduced visibility range, so I'm not going to go into that too much more. Text symbol style. That's something in which I will come back to, because look what we have here. we have beautiful, already made, nice logos. So we got the symbol. We just got to get the text right. So we got something which we can plug that sucker right in, and we don't have much work to do at all. So we're going to come back to that. So, but our problem is, look at all this. Ugh. And so this is also where I can then do different things as far as changing the label. So shield is kind of the logical. European, it's right on top, I believe. See, it's doing real time. Notice it's spinning at the bottom. So it's working. Faster, come on. Must not have breakfast. Well, that's the problem when we have so many labels. See, okay, there. So it's putting them right on. So this is where, once again, you choose your own adventure, but I think I already gave it away as far as the ideal. But let's go to our attribute table, and let's see if we can make this better. And we've got, well, only 1,600 ones to go through. And we look at the root name, that's the problem. If it's the root name, it's got all this extra stuff. I just want the I whatever. And if I go through here, I can see occasionally that those are labeled. There's like, for example, I-80. So they're there. And if I look at over here in the alternate one, INC, okay. So what I'm going to do is this alternate one, I'm going to sort it. Descending, not condescending. And I'm going to go find the inks. INCs. Now it's sorted alphabetically, that's why I did that to help me. There they all are. So I just want to get these. And I'm going to select them all. And we've done this numerous times already. Just make a new layer out of these suckers. So, and it should be only so many of them. Oh, okay. So I'm going to highlight each of the INCs and then create a layer from that. I can also do the same thing by doing the select by attributes, choosing alternate one, and choosing this to show just the INCs. Just remember how the very first exercise we did when we did, I can't remember what it was, probably counties, but something we did in the very first exercise, same idea. All right, so let's make a layer from this. Clear. And now get rid of this so we can see. And now we've got rid of all those all those extra stuff. It's a whole lot cleaner. So now we did that, we can then now go up here to our text symbol style and choose what, shield 1? Sure. And now notice how it did it. Not perfectly. We still got issues. We still got like our I-69, so this is something which I would want to go in the labeling over here. I'd fix. I fix the orientation so that they're always going straight up. In fact, I'll just do that right now. That is, what is that? That's the shield option. Boom. So I went up to label placement and click shield. And you can see where it gets the name shield from the shield logo used for interstates. So that's how we got all those interstates down to these lines and these logos. Now, if you would, and you maybe want to change things, maybe, for example, this does a good job of, now not always is this the case, but let's say here, I-65 isn't shown. That's where there is, in post-production, you can then essentially copy and paste that as a graphic. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, situations like that where I-65, it's such a long stretch of road that you kind of almost, while you're here, if you're not from here, you kind of, well, what happened to it? Where did it go? Did it go there? Did it go there? Well, it is kept on, and that's where that would help. But in this case, it did it for me. Now, not always is that the case. Once again, we're dealing with an algorithm and stuff behind the system, so to speak, behind the screen. All right, that's the highways, that's the counties. Now let's go to the rivers. And we'll label them. And what's nice is you can see how the default usually is here in the label features. I mean, it pretty much always goes to the logical one, name. So it's, it's not going to the first one. It's not going to FID. It's going, when it's using label, it's going to whatever one logically it sees being named. All right, so we have some situations to clear up here. So in this case, first off, our font's too big. Our fonts for the rivers. Yes, I love rivers. I'm a riverologist, but they're just, they're too much prominence in this map here. So I'd want to then change the size. So now we're doing basic, simple things, reducing the size of font. Logically, I'd also want to choose blue. This is where cartographic rules, automatic point deduction, if this isn't the case, we would want this to be italicized. And you can see in this particular font style, well, I don't have that option. I'll have to go somewhere else. I'll have to go find a different font. And I want to find a simple one. Does Arial still exist? Yeah, it does. Great. Italic. Now, I'm not saying you have to use Arial, but you have to use italic. And so now I've got those rivers italicized, and now I can start then changing the labeling. And what's nice is a lot of this can be done for us. This isn't like 20 years ago where actually you had a stencil that had all the letters, and you would go in and you would fill it in and color it in with the pink, and hope you didn't mess it up. Now it's all done for you, and it's all logically done as well. Now there is some situations here like Big Walnut Creek where we'd want that to be spread out more, or maybe, let's think about this. This is where each cartographer is different. Maybe having Big Walnut on one side and Creek on the other would be maybe something you'd consider there. Or Big Walnut Creek. So Big Walnut as one on one side and Creek on the other. Definitely have overprinting happening here. So we have duplicates. So let's go ahead and try to clean this up on the fly here, so this could be bad. At any time, if any of you have to go, no problem. If you walk out, no problem. All right, remove all duplicate labels. Great, it did it for me. So if you see in position, so the position tab, and then I go down to our far right here, this, what does it say? Does it pop? Conflict resolution. Boy, that sounds cool. Conflict resolution there. Remove duplicates. I chose to remove all. Do other things with labeling, making sure the labels don't touch each other, giving them a larger percentage of space. So they should spread out a bit. Any unplaced label? Never remove the unplaced ones. Oh, okay. Well, so I chose to do that. So this is where, once again, guessing and checking. I chose to never remove, thinking, well, that's going to be better because I never want to do that. And look what it did. It just created chaos. So, okay, all right, fine. Sorry. I will try. So I will put something on that fits me. All right. So then, what's other options? Let's go up to the label placement. Actually, let's do it up here. Let's do it in the pane because we can do more stuff. All right, label placement. Hopefully this sticks out, stands out. There is one that, oh, river placement, that makes a lot of sense. So this is where you can choose different things, offset curved or center curved. And what that did was that, if we could see let's do regular. For before, look at Wabash River. And so, once again, this used to be stuff that we used to have to go, and we'd have to go and click Wabash. Used to be. When I talk about used to, this is my generation. This is like 5 years ago. We used to have to click Wabash, move it, and then make it so that it was aligned to river. And it was really cool when they made the align button so that they would snap and align together. Now, you just click this button here and do river placement, and it does it all for us. I would kind of maybe want that at Wabash River. It's a little too close to the river. I would want that a little bit offset more. So I changed that with that primary offset. And these are where I'm changing all of the labels. Where I'm getting ready to take us. Why is the stream finished? All right, whatever. Oh, I have time limit. Man, I went over, didn't I? So, go ahead. Can I do a new one? Can't. All right. I don't know where I was, but oh, a line label to direction of line. That also is one where, oh yeah, you think that would make sense. I click it and let's see what happens. You can see how it added more chaos to my map, and so I'm going to uncheck it. So another instance of that, where at first you'd think it would be better. A stack, yeah, stack. Anything else? That's it. All right. So next, our last thing is before I take it to the new map, or to the new layout, I should say, is to convert everything to annotations. And so converting the labels to annotations, what that then allows me to do is now I can then click the labels and then rotate them, move them, delete them, make them better. Oh, I forgot to do something. My fault. There's one step with the rivers that I didn't do, the one that I was super proud of that I used AI to help me out with. And that's the fact that, you know what, we can make this map cleaner if we got rid of something redundant. And that's the word river. And so the river it's on there too much. So I want to get rid of the river from the labels. Creek is cool, whatever. But Kankakee, Wabash, Ohio, we know them as that. We don't need all that river. So this is where I want to introduce us to doing an expression. And so I have the rivers highlighted. So I make sure I have it highlighted, and I go to the expression. This is where all you have to do is just copy and paste this in, because it's what I did. And so for the rivers, make sure to use logical font color and also remove the redundancy of the word river in each name. For example, the Wabash River should be labeled simply as Wabash. And so here's the expression to do that. So copy, paste, and it's arcade, paste it, apply, and it got rid of instantly river from all of that. So if you want, you can get rid of creek or whatever, but some of the Sugar Mill Creek kind of needs the creek part. But that's just to introduce you to doing that, using arcade expressions. All right, now let's go ahead and convert these to graphics. Save. Right-click, convert labels to annotation. And this is where I used to tell people, save it in a certain place, just whatever they say. For example, my project, GD, right here, whatever they say, okay, yes, instead of worrying too much about run. Hopefully it runs. Now, it would not run if I didn't have my labels. So the labels have to be shown, because it can't do annotations on labels that aren't shown. So that's something you might come across as an error message, is because, well, you don't have your labels on, or you don't have it selected. You don't have the right layer selected. So you're wanting to do something that's not the right layer. Common mistake there. All right, so I've converted these. And you can see how it's this new thing over here. And that's where I can then go in and start selecting these. And if I go up to edit, I can select it. Let's say I just want to delete the sucker. I don't want it. I can modify it. I can change the rotation, change it, make it individual, make it so it's one word or one line instead of two lines. That's where I can now individually play around with each label. Is after you convert the labels to annotations. So I'm just going to, in this case, for example, delete it. And now that one particular one is gone. Now that I did that, there's two different places in which it's going to tell me I need to save it. Of course, we have our save button at the top. But then there's the save right there, pending edits, it's telling me, and then there's also save button there. So I always click the first one here, and that usually takes care of both of them. So I always click that one in there, personal thing. So that's then how you can then go in and click and annotate, click and change the labels. So that's it. For the most part, there's nothing left to do except to put this into a new layout. Don't add a title, don't add your name. Well, if you want to, go for it. But don't add any more stuff. You did the work. You've done the work here. So just get it in layout. And then, do kind of think about some of the things we talk about in Online Lecture 5. I do talk about the map frame and how you want to have it kind of, the whole entire map area covered. So that 8.5 by 11 PDF, which is your export, make sure that a lot of it's covered. I don't want to see Indiana's small little part or have overlapping the entire page. So fill out the mapped area logically to use Online Lecture 5 terminology. All right, that's all I got. So if there's any questions, comments, concerns, BAKERAN@iu.edu.